Good evening, everybody. The purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of the Gettysburg Area School District. Public comment is welcome and issues will be referred to the appropriate board, committee, or administrator. Comments will be summarized in the official board minutes, which will be made available by contacting the business office. Tonight's a little different. There's actually two meetings inside the time that we're in here. The first portion of this meeting before we would adjourn is the public budget hearing. And prior to the public budget hearing and a discussion, we have two groups with us from our district, and it's with the art, and then the other group is TSA. What we're going to do this evening for logistics is I'm going to turn it over to Julie Myers for the art. When we're done with that, we'll take a few moments and allow you to, I'm sorry, let me do the explaining and I'll go backwards before I turn it over to you. We'll give you a few minutes. Parents and students can leave. We'll bring TSA in, and we'll do the same thing with them. Having said that, everybody's present with the exception of Mike Dickerson, who's been excused. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah.
There's two citizens' parts for both meetings.
That's correct. I'm going to explain that.
The one that has to do with the budget, I figured I'd let them speak.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the National Art Honor Society members up. We'll start with the National Art Honor Society. It's our club at the high school level, and then I'll go ahead and present the awards. Rebecca Reaver and Bryce Myers.
Thank you for your time. We've got some flyers that we're going to pass around that basically just have all of the information we're about to present to you guys. So, the National Art Honor Society is a student-led organization that's dedicated to creating a sense of community and providing opportunities for students who exhibit outstanding art scholarship. Over the past several years, the NAHS has organized a multitude of initiatives to help our students and our community through art. And those include fundraisers, murals within our school, and a couple of scholarships. So firstly, we're going to talk about the student opportunities that we provide. The NAHS provides members with access to several scholarships for art and design schools. Students will also have the opportunity to have their work published in the National NAHS News magazine, which may be the first step in a successful art career. Secondly, Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. These awards are the nation's longest-running and most prestigious recognition program for creative teens. Many famous creatives have won such Scholastic Awards in their youth, such as Langston Hughes and Andy Warhol. This year, Gettysburg Area School District was awarded 65 regional awards, which was the most out of any central Pennsylvania school.
Another thing we were focused on this year was community outreach, so we organized several events and art installations designed to invoke a sense of gratitude and unity. The most important we did was Paint for Page, which was a paint night event to help raise funds for Gettysburg alumnus Paige Creel with medical costs.
And then lastly, we had a couple of mural dedications this year. We dedicated several existing murals, although unfortunately many of them were painted over in the high school. Although this year we just painted a new mural, which was conceptualized and painted by our senior vice president, Katie Hansen. It features both messages and stories from our own high school students that attempts to bring attention to students' mental health struggles and to instill within the community the message that nobody is alone. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Before you walk off, just as a note, it's difficult to come in here in front of a bunch of strangers and a board, and I'm impressed, and your parents should be proud. That was a fantastic job in delivery of your information.
I couldn't agree more. I almost said, hey, would you like to read the rest? The arts are the soul of a community, and tonight I have the pleasure of presenting selected works of art to share with you in the District Art Honor and Superintendent Award. I'd like to start out by thanking you for your time, your hard work, and your dedication to the future of our community, our children. Since the advent of computers, the arts have provided many students with a pathway into technology. As scientist Anissa Ramirez states, the arts are the secret sauce to science, technology, engineering, and math. Our high school students presenting you with art tonight are living proof of this. All of these works of art are a glimpse of proof that Gettysburg area elementary schools, Gettysburg area middle, and Gettysburg area high schools make inventors and experimenters. In this line of thinking, I am pleased to present Gettysburg Area School District art teachers and their students to share on behalf of each building. And for each of you, in hopes that you recognize our gratitude for providing a daily place to invent and experiment. Presenting our artwork on behalf of Lincoln Elementary, art teacher Lydia Wester Stith, artwork by Brielle Hanna, grade 3. This piece is titled The Ordinary Cake and Cupcake, and it's a piece made with oil pastel. Very nice. Presenting artwork on behalf of Franklin Township Elementary, art teacher Tori Davenport. Artwork by Avery Johnson, grade 5, titled Landscape. Go ahead, Avery. Presenting artwork on behalf of James Geddes Elementary, art teacher Savannah Minetta. Artwork by Crosby Nell. Grade 4, watercolor landscape. Show it to everybody here. Presenting artwork on behalf of Gettysburg Middle, art teacher Linnea Johnson. Artwork by Liam Dixon, grade 8, titled Death. This is a graphite drawing. Very good. Presenting artwork on behalf of Gettysburg Area High School, art teacher Amy Drees. Artwork by Sophia Hartman, grade 12. This is handbag inspired by 1960s fashion and crafted of upcycled materials. Thanks, Sophia. Make sure you show everybody. There you go. Put it on and fashion it. And myself presenting another high school district honor and the superintendent award. First, the district art honor. Artwork by Melina Reber. Lena. Grade 12. Work inspired during the COVID lockdown titled Not Alone, Drawing and Illustration. Thank you, Melina. And now the Superintendent Award. Spencer Moole, grade 10. Spencer? This won a national medal. And hopefully Spencer will be traveling to New York City in June to receive his gold medal, his silver medal, and his National American Visions Award. This is titled Dreams of Cathedral, Digital Media Art. Thanks, Spencer. Thank you again for your time and your encouragement.
Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful work. We'll take a few moments. If you wish to stay, you can. If you'd like to leave, now would be the time, and we'll bring our next presenting group in. Thank you so much for everything.
Where did we put this? I forgot. Where'd you grab their artwork? Before I put them all in. Yeah. I don't know. I have to take it from you. After the science batch goes. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. All right, see you.
So I'm just gonna do group pictures after we're done.
You want to get that?
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna do
You could just go on the back.
Yeah.
I think they're ready, Kenny. Yep.
Okay. Hello, my name is Katie Hefner, and I am the advisor for the Middle School Technology Student Association. It's a club, and it is a nationwide club. There's 250,000 members all across the nation, and I personally think that the middle school has the best 10 students in the club. We just went to regionals in February. We brought 10 kids who had to prepare projects of various sorts in a month. They joined the club late. They had less than a month, actually, from starting to finish. And of the 10 students who came to regionals, 10 of them also made it to states. And that was a quite large accomplishment for these young men. All of them were boys, and they were mostly sixth graders. And for those of you who have kids, I'm sure you're well aware that sixth grade is really tough. And for 8 sixth grade boys to attend this state conference was such a feat. And I'm just very proud of them. I brought 3 of them today. We had a lot of kids place in their competitions, and we even had one first place winner for our state competition. So of all of the schools in Pennsylvania, Gettysburg Middle School came out first with Noah, and he will be first to speak. He just wanted to share a little bit.
Okay.
This is his project. I'm going to walk it around so you guys can see.
This invention that I made is called the Chord Cube. It's a keyboard that you can play like rotating like a ball. The sides light up and play different notes, so it's a lot of fun to play with. I also learned a lot about like making microcontrollers, which was also coinciding as the name of this event as well. I also learned a lot about soldering metal together, coding, and like wiring up which are all great abilities to have. There's like a couple different events in TSA, such as like from architecture to fashion, RC racing, children's stories. I worked on the team project with my fellow TSA student who is not currently here today, called Aiden, and we worked on a project called Off the Grid, and my individual event right here was called the microcontroller. Aiden and I did really good at regionals and ended up making it to states. We competed there and were interviewed by the judges in the semifinals. We did very well and placed as finalists. I also completed in an individual event like this, where the theme was design an educational toy for toddlers. I love playing the piano and working with electronics, so I decided to create this toy that was inspired by one of my favorite gadgets, the Rubik's Cube.
Up next, we have Aiden Mahoney.
This year was my first TSA experience. I learned so many things that could help me in my future, such as leadership skills, strong work ethic, and great responsibility. I am so excited for my future in TSA, and I can't wait to see what it has to offer. I enjoyed it so much that I'm encouraging many new students and my twin brother to join next year.
And then last, we have one of our only 8th grade students, Aiken.
Hi. So, yep, I'm Aiken, and I would say that TSA has been a wonderful experience for me. I met new people even too with like at the conference and stuff like that, and the competitions and everything. They were very, how should I say, they have an educational yet entertaining aspect to them. So I would recommend it for really anybody.
That's all. We just really wanted to showcase TSA and the opportunities that we have for our middle school and high school students. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations.
I'm Lisa Gormley. I'm the elementary instructional coach. Can you hear me? And I'm very happy to show some of the students that worked on design thinking with the LIU. We had a challenge where they were to come up with, first they researched a lot of environmental challenges that are going on, and then they had to design something that would solve it, and it had to be creative based on research, and it also had to be a team effort, and they also had to make a design notebook. It was quite an undertaking, but they did a fabulous job. We had teams from all the elementary campuses, but I only brought one from each, even though you'd love to see all of them. I know that this was going to have to be a short thing. So we're going to start with the Lincoln team. The James Geddes team. Come on up here. Sorry. And they're going to introduce themselves, and some of them are going to walk around and show it, and the other one's going to talk. So, who would like to go ahead?
I'm Grayson.
And
I'm McKenna. I'm Elsie. And I'm Henry. Our design is called OCO, and it stands for Atlantic Ocean Cleanup Operation. It is used to clean, compact, and dispose of trash.
where did you use it? Did you say it was in the water?
Yeah.
In the ocean? All right. Do you guys want to add anything? Okay. The next team is our Lincoln team.
Hi, I'm Addison. Hi, I'm Melissa. Hi, I'm Zoe.
Okay. Talk about what it does. What's the challenge you were trying to solve?
We are trying to solve an environmental problem, and we chose invasive species mainly on the spotted lanternflies.
Explain that your spotted lanternfly. Isn't that a spotted lanternfly?
This is the spotted lanternfly for our prototype,
And this is a prototype. Explain what it does.
and this is the prototype. So,
Can you hear her?
can you hear? What our prototype does is it traps and kills the spotted lanternflies.
Do you want to say anything more about it?
What it does is whenever it catches onto the green sticky pad, it activates, it pulls down a vinegar cup. We did vinegar cup because that's what spotted lanternflies don't like.
Anything else?
When it pours down the vinegar, it puts the spotted lanternfly down the cup system, and it puts it in the net, and the vacuum sucks it up.
Good job. Nice work. And we have a Franklin team, and they're solving the problem of deforestation.
My name is Scarlett. I'm Ryder. And my name is Maddie.
Okay, do you want to explain what it does?
So, our prototype is called the Deforestation Hero, and it plants seeds and fertilizer so that trees can grow in places in like fields and stuff that don't have trees. So it has a solar panel that runs which runs the robot, and yeah. And then we have the seeder, which whenever it walks, the seeds fall out into the ground so it can plant seeds. These are the seeds.
So that was the Deforestation Hero.
Ms. Gormley, on behalf of the board, fantastic job, and thank you to the students that came in here. Great work. You just exemplified what we're here for. Before we continue, we're going to allow those who want to exit to go ahead and leave. And then, Dave, if you could shut the doors, we'll continue on with the public budget meeting. For a point of reference, our next category or line item is citizens' participation. There are two separate meetings tonight, so I would encourage if you're doing citizens' participation, and I have not looked to see what the topics are, that it might be better if it's related to the budget to do it at this particular juncture. If it's related to another topic not related to the budget, we can do that during the second half of our meeting. But again, I'm not going to stop you. If you want to do it the first part, go ahead. It just would make more sense to me to relate it back to what our topics are this evening. So having said that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Moyer for citizens' participation.
Thank you, President Hassinger, and good evening, everyone. As Mr. Hassinger said, we do have 2 citizens' participation tonight. We have 4 people that have asked to address the board. 2 are related to the budget, so I think we'll handle those first. Apologize for taking that a little bit out of order. And then for our regular meeting tonight, then we'll cover the other 2. All right, so at this time, and just a reminder, for our citizens' participation, this is really not a time for debate or interaction back and forth. If you do have any specific questions, we certainly, Dr. Perrin and his team, will turn it over to the person that is most qualified to provide a response within a reasonable time after this. So with that said, I'd like to invite our first guest, Mr. Bob Stillwell.
Thank you, Dr. Moyer. Mr. President, after I spoke at the last board meeting, I had not intended to address the board again, assuming it would follow through with its determination to pass a 0% property tax increase budget. I strongly encourage you to do that. But after the budget presentation last time, I sat and listened to our district superintendent pat himself on the back for having raised property taxes only 0.8% on average for the last 5 years. I wanted to throw up. Had it been a minus sign in front of that 0.8, that is a tax rollback, I might have been patting him on the back too. But there wasn't, and he never mentioned that the cumulative tax increase is more than 4%. That might not seem impressive to most of us in this room, but try to tell that to someone in this district trying to make ends meet and hold on to their house on just Social Security. I thought to myself, how pompous to sit there and brag about raising property taxes. So here I am again. As I pointed out, for several years, this school district is not deserving of any tax increase. I think they must teach and supervise a school that thou must ask for a tax increase no matter what, the taxpayers be damned. If this administration had half a political brain, it will realize that the housing boom happening in the Gettysburg Area School District will yield a windfall of new property tax revenue that will likely well exceed the expected rise in expenses. In the past few days, I've seen many posts by members of this board and those that apparently support them on social media that inflation is so bad that we have nowhere to go but raise taxes. There is nowhere we can cut and other oddities. For example, quote, over the past 3 years, the current board and administration have reduced the district's operating budget by almost $6 million. End quote. Edwin John Michael, also known as Michael Dickerson. Actually, Michael, the budget has gone up $5.6 million over the past 3 years. Then again, quote, perhaps when Mrs. O'Brien figures out that there isn't any extra fat to cut from the budget, ... That was posted by Michelle Smyers. So let me give you a short tutorial as to where this school district can cut fat, and a lot of it. In the past school year, there were 17 functional expenditure line items that could have been cut. I'll just mention the top 6. Regular programs, $604,000. Special programs, $784,000. Other instructional programs, whatever those are, $381,000. Instructional staff services, $129,000. Administrative services, $182,000. Debt service, $178,000. That's just the top 6. Altogether, from those 17 lines, $2,484,986 could have been cut from that budget. How do I know that? Because the audit for that year said so. Those are the amounts of dollars that had been budgeted that were not spent. Audits are pesky little things, aren't they? Now you might be thinking, well, this is just an anomaly, that most years are not like that. You'd be wrong. This is a Gettysburg Area School District habit. The year before, $1,340,168 went unspent. The year before that, $2,476,794 went unspent. The year before that, $3,092,377 unspent. And it goes on even before that. Does anyone think this is an accident? No wonder the school district sits on piles of reserve cash at the end of each year. But look out for that next tax increase demand and try to fend off the wails of poverty and threats of cutting programs. They're nothing but BS. Until just recently, I thought only Amy Beth Hodges understood this. She is the only member of this board who has consistently voted to deny a tax increase because of the illegal hoard of cash being carried on the books. And this board has done everything it can to neutralize her. Thank you, Amy Beth. I hope your writing campaign is successful. This board needs to have you back. Recently, I saw proof positive that another board member, Michelle Smyers, also knew about this questionable budgeting practice. Even though she knew, she never spoke out about it and voted with the rest of the sheep on the board to raise property taxes anyway. Again, I wanted to throw up. And I've always believed that the rest of this board knew what was going on. How could you not? I've told you for the last few years about it. But instead of watching out for the taxpayers, especially those struggling to survive on Social Security alone, you have drunk the Perrin-Wallen Kool-Aid of administration's protests of poverty, and for years just gone along to get along. When, if ever, is this milquetoast board going to grow a backbone and accept its role as oversight authority of the Gettysburg Area School District Administration? Perrin works for you, not the other way around as you seem to believe. And you work for the taxpayers. Start acting like it.
Thank you, Bob. And our next person that would like to speak relative to the budget is Mr. Mike O'Brien.
Good evening. My comments are indirectly about the budget, partially about the budget. But I want to primarily take this opportunity to set the record straight on a few points. My wife, Martha, is running for a position on the GASD board. I am not. For convenience, she and I have shared an email address for 30-plus years. And also, like every couple I know, we agree on many issues, disagree on others. To the meat. In a letter to the editor appearing in the May 10th edition of the Gettysburg Times, board member Michelle Smyers knowingly made a false statement in an attempt to damage my wife's campaign for a position on the board. She attributed to my wife an email concerning my opinion about vital issues versus nice-to-haves, which kind of goes to what Bob was talking about. We've got a bunch of nice-to-have things that maybe the taxpayers can't continue to afford. So it's time to look at affecting some programs. My opinion, not Martha's. An email from me on 5/16 recounted the essence of a conversation between me and Dr. Perrin, in which music programs in elementary schools became the specific example of the nice-to-have programs. Ms. Myers first posted portions of the email on social media and attributed it to Martha. Martha politely corrected her, stated that they were my comments, not hers. Ms. Myers then knowingly repeated the same misinformation both online and in her letter to the editor, which by mistake was also in the May 11th newspaper. Last year, in her email response to me on 5/19/22, Ms. Myers addressed me by name, quote, Michael, thank you for this email. It gives me an opportunity to actually discuss with you some things that I've been working on, end quote. So she clearly knew that the 5/16 email was from me, not from Martha. In her 5/19 response, she shared some of her opinions on excess in the budget and how difficult it is to dig out the real numbers. She also implicitly agreed with me that we have many nice-to-have programs that could be pared back, but stated, and I quote, I'll go after the sports budget before I go after music and arts. In fact, I've already attempted to cut coaching salaries by no less than 10%, but was met with a roadblock. Admission that, yeah, there's a lot of nice to have in that budget. In other interesting paragraphs, quote, the administration, quote, regularly over budget for a number of categories, end quote, to pad the budget with hidden reserves, which agrees with the public comments of Bob Stilwell. In the 10th paragraph, she stated she, quote, would be very hard pressed to vote yes on the final budget that includes any tax increase, end quote. Yet she did. The following month, she and every other board member, except Amy Beth, voted for a 1.38% tax increase. Ms. Myers apparently further shared my email or parts of it with others, including Mr. Dickerson, who also spread the same misinformation on various social media, falsely attributing my opinions and statements to my wife. And of course, focusing on the specific example rather than the general. Unlike Ms. Myers, it's possible that those others were unaware whether it was me or Martha who wrote the original email. Now that they know, if they have any integrity, they'll correct the record on those social media. Since Ms. Myers knowingly spread misinformation in an attempt to mislead the public, it calls into question her credibility on other issues and statements. And I'm saddened and disappointed by that, especially all of our efforts in 2021 to help get her elected. In related attempts on social media to impugn Martha's integrity, she's been castigated for using a screen name Ellie Phillips. Lots of people use online pseudonyms for various reasons. The whole point seems rather petty to me, but it struck me that one of the trolls used the name John Edwin Michael. I'd never heard of him. So we looked on the Chatham County voter rolls to see who is this guy. Couldn't find him. But we've been told by others that John Edward Michael is, in fact, on Facebook, Mike Dickerson. If true, then the comments are not only petty, but rather hypocritical. There's also some questions circulating about dark money in Martha's campaign. There's nothing dark about it. It comes from our saving and checking account. In fact, we've even turned down offers to contribute to her campaign to keep it simple for the campaign finance reporting. As a closing thought, attempted character assassination, what attorneys might refer to as defamation of character, by rumor, innuendo, partial truths, intentional misinformation, total fabrication and or blatant lies, sounds a lot like bullying. And over the last few months, I've heard several parents during these public comment sections complaining about students bullying other students, especially on social media, which is where most of this stuff happened. And I can't help wondering, are the adults emulating the adolescent behavior, or perhaps the students are mirroring what they see modeled by the adults? Maybe that's worth contemplating by those involved. The emails involved have been provided to the board electronically and to your solicitors, and there's a few copies on the back. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mike. Shocked to hear that there may be misinformation on social media. But we have two other people that have asked to share with the board. If it's okay with you, Leslie and Alex, I think we'll wait till the second meeting, since those items were related to the budget, if that's okay with the two of you. Thank you.
Thank you. That actually brings us to the review of the 2023-2024 proposed budget, 5.1. I believe, Belinda?
Good evening. This will just be a quick review of our previous information that was presented to the board. Of course, our proposed final budget is in accordance with the hearing as presented. As stated earlier in previous meetings, this is presented as a 0% budget increase, as requested by the board members at a previous meeting. Our proposed final budget, of course, has local revenue of...
Excuse me, Belinda. Team, is it possible to turn this monitor on as well? Thank you.
I apologize, Al. Becky asked me, and I thought everyone was using the big screen there, and I knew that the audience wasn't looking back at this one.
So our proposed budget, of course, for revenue local sources is $47,240,662 with a 1.3% increase. This is not assuming any changes to the tax rolls at this particular point in time. We're waiting on some information yet from the county. It does include some real estate changes as well as some increases in our earned income. State sources is $21,162,513, a 6.2% increase over prior year, largely mostly towards basic ed subsidy, which is an increase from the previous years, as well as 50% of the governor's proposal is included in the proposed. Federal sources, again, are $979,204. Overall, local sources of revenue is 68% of the $69,404,385, followed by state sources of 30.5%, and the local and other sources of 1.5%. Overall, without any additional funds attributed, just simply local sources, state and federal, it increased 2.7%. Now, of course, obviously, to balance the expenditure side of the equation, we are planned to use the committed and the assigned fund balances as listed there below. Again, I'll repeat those from previous meetings. So we have use of our committed funds, which is PSERS. This is a fund that's set aside, has been set aside for years in the past, and every year we perform a calculation to attribute the spend down of those funds. We have assigned fund balance budgetary reserve of $1.5 million. Capital projects of $500,000, GASD cyber of $250,000, the future medical, we know our increases are forthcoming with the 23-24 school budget, and so $500,000 towards that. Sun funds of technology of $100,000, and then of course our future borrowing of $339,849. So this is the total of these funds for use of is $3.3 million, $3.386242 to be exact. This will provide local sources of a total of $72,790,625. Overall, a 6.9% increase. Without those additional funds being brought in to address the expenditure side, overall the increase was 2.7% in overall revenue for the 23-24 school budget. So what I would like to show here is something we've historically done just to show that when we do look at the revenue sources, we do project a certain amount of households of coming on tax rolls. And this slide represents of what's already included in the local revenue. So, of course, we know that there is some building at Amblebrook, about 50% of the 100 houses, with the average assessment of $427,800. This is located in Strabane Township. This would equate to $240,828 of 50% of Amblebrook homes coming on tax rolls as of July 1st. Hers Ridge, about 50% of 45 houses, $400,000 average for Cumberland Township. This would bring in, this would equate to $101,330. And then, of course, we had some change in assessment appeals from last year to current year. The $75,697 is a reduction into the appeals that have been won and also determined at this particular point. So overall revenue in the local sources, real estate taxes, which is included, is $266,461. And this is, again, these are estimates based upon what we know at a particular point in time. We do have to reach out to the county to obtain updated information, and we'll have to obviously change our percentages as we receive assessment update, and that is expected before the next board meeting. So once we receive that information, we'll do another assessment update on the real estate tax revenue estimates. But again, $266,461 is included in the real estate estimates for local sources. As for our expenditures, our overall expenditures over prior year's budget is 4.1% overall. The salaries had actually gone down simply due to the planned transfer of entity for ACTI employees. Salaries does include 13.75% increase in the starting wages, as well as other wage increases associated with the association and so forth. So while the salary and wages goes down, it's still a factor of the benefit portion of the next area. So the benefits outside of our medical health insurance increasing, we still have local benefits in terms of PSERS, Social Security, and other sorts, dental, all other benefits associated with salaries that are a percentage or portion thereof. So, of course, even though our health care is increasing 12% for the 13-14 school year, some changes in the category only bring the overall benefit category of 5.3% increase over prior year. Again, our other professional services are shown here, along with our supplies and equipment. Other financing sources, there's a large change. One requested to bring back a 0% budget, which we did. The first area, in order to not address programs, not touch programs at all, we looked at the funding of the capital plan that is annually approved year after year. So we reduced funds for the capital project planning to support. And then, of course, we will reduce areas of, address areas that we had proposed in the capital plan in order to meet the funding level that's there and or not to be there. So we'll probably take a look at reducing some plans within the capital plan of to do. For example, we may look at the out of the capital plan. Just one example, we may look at changing or altering or making a decision as to what we do with the stadium improvements to the stadium without funding for future capital plan. Overall, the expenditures are $73,451,341, and like I mentioned before, it was 4.1% increase over prior year. Fund balance is talked about a lot, and we review fund balance pretty much at every meeting. What I like to mention about fund balance is fund balance is, again, only determined, the importance of fund balance is determined only when budgeting. There is a state requirement that says that you cannot be over 8% in your fund balance of unassigned, unreserved fund balance. Our school policy indicates that we will hold minimally 4 to 6%, 6 to 8% of fund balance, as stated in the policy. So again, fund balance is really basically what's left over after the end of the year. And when we are working we're always working in 3 years. We're closing out a year, we're in a year, and we're projecting a year. So at one particular point in time, the fund balance will begin. In this instance, the unassigned fund balance is beginning as of 6/30/22. This is $5 million. So if we include our local, all of our revenue, proposed revenue, local, state, and federal sources, our budget add-in is $69 million. And again, we're bringing in forth the assigned and or committed fund balance in order to stopgap the revenue to the expenditures in this particular slide. And so therefore, we are bringing in, as mentioned before, 3.386242 for the assigned and the committed funds. And then, of course, what is our limit to be able to use of the unassigned portion to help balance the budget? And in order to maintain a 6% limit, which is the lowest percent on the policy, we were able to use $660,716 to help offset the expenditures. Again, overall, assigned, committed, unassigned, it's $4 million to meet the expenditures. This would give us, at year end, June 30, 2024, $4.4 million of unassigned. This money will equates to 1 month of expenditures. So if everything falls through, of course, again, you're budgeting, your fund balance is only at the time that you're budgeting. It is not assigned at the year end and when audits are due. We have historically, yes, done better than what has been projected, simply because our administrators are frugal. They're only spending what they have planned to spend in their budgets, as well as our estimates of revenue have been conservative. So of course, for example, the state provided additional revenue last year that we didn't put into our budget. So of course, we're not permitted to spend those additional funds during the year. So if we receive $1 million or $2 million additional income in any one particular year, we are not permitted to expend more just because we received $1 to $2 million a year. The process that is it falls into fund balance, and then the fund balance is then used to help offset help to the next year's budgeting cycle. That is the typical process that every school will go through. We're just not historically, and or the state does not allow you, if you set your budget at $73 million, you're not permitted to spend $75 million just because you received more revenue. But again, this is just a snapshot. Again, we will continue to update our information as it comes in. Once the assessment data is known, the goal that we would particularly like to have, to know that we didn't address programs at all, is if we received additional influx of revenue, which is not likely at this particular point, simply because we already are seeing the Homestead Farmstead numbers increase in total, which means it'll decrease the volume in what is appropriated out to those approved Homestead Farmstead folks. So while the district may not be doing or enforcing an increase in the tax dollars, that Homestead Farmstead number may show a slight change to where it may come that taxpayers are receiving a small increase in their taxes assessment based upon that Homestead Farmstead. So I like to mention that simply because while we prepare a budget, it's not necessarily set in stone that while we proceed with 0%, that it's the almighty that no one's going to see a tax increase on their taxes, simply because it all depends on that Homestead Farmstead, and it all depends what the state is providing us in those calculations. But beside the point, what I would like to also stress is $4.4 million really is 1 month worth of expenditures, and that you can see in our month-to-month financial reports that's provided to the board. So while we finish this budget, $4.4 million is really what will hold us through until tax revenues start coming in of July of 2024. As mentioned before, this is the slide that shows where the index is. And I mentioned before that the index is really what the state provides us. This is what our permittable tax increases are allowable. That's not to say Gettysburg did do the tax increases. And in fact, the index is in red and the Gettysburg School District's increases are in blue. And this is the same slide that was presented before, but the very next slide that I'd like to present is the index for next year is 4.8%, and we are proposing a 0% budget, which brings down that 6-year average to 0.672% increase. And so I only like to show this just simply because while we're heading into negotiations and while we're heading into many other factors that could include more expenditures in our budget in the future years, for example, the ESSER cliff that is coming that I mentioned before, and while no one likes to hear it, financially you're letting money sit on the table not to address future needs. But again, like I mentioned previously too, with use of unassigned and assigned fund balances, it's a once and done deal. So when you use it, it's gone and it's not there. So it's no question that you can help stopgap your budgets before. We are not in a position to roll back taxes. I don't know that any school district that would roll back taxes across the state, simply because there are certain requirements that you need in place to help fund your debt. And so, of course, it is not necessarily considered in rolling back taxes. But again, this is just showing the increases for a 6-year period if we follow through and proceed with the 0%, which is proposed. This tax millage chart is on our website, and this is just showing like what your tax rate would be at the average assessed value. Again, we're proposing 0%, so it'll be 0% on new money or any new changes to the assessment. And only if we were going to consider the 4.8%, that is only if we were ever going to consider that, the annual on the average assessed value in Gettysburg would be $142.16 increase in a year. But overall, like I said, this is tax millage impact chart is on the website. We've provided it annually, like all the other documentation we have. We've provided it annually and are available on our website. This will show you how to go through your tax calculation. And just a note at the bottom that the Holston Farmstead will likely change, reduction coming from that, and could likely change as well once we have everything in place. Lastly, just next steps. Our hearing is this evening, just reviewing those expenditures. Our board, June 5th, I believe that says. Sorry, my glasses on. We hope to adopt the final budget. I'm proceeding as the 0% increase unless we hear otherwise from the board, but that would be the intent. And then, of course, June 19th is only if needed. We would have the meeting if we need to proceed with additional budgetary options. But we are heading down the path, and other changing. If we do change our revenue and increase it by any means, the goal would probably be to change the capital plan refunding to bring that back up to a level for any new resources that do come in for real estate taxes from the assessment office. But too early to tell that at this particular point in time, just simply because we haven't received the update yet. Any questions?
Maybe a question, but a couple of comments, Belinda. Number one, from a personal standpoint, I want to thank you for budgeting conservatively. I'm aware of several districts that are estimating or guessing that they're going to get 75% to 100% of the governor's recommendation. I think 50% makes a lot of sense to me. I know school bean counters like to have exact numbers, and it must drive you and your team, Tom and others, crazy when you have to wait so long to get that information and so on. But the last time I checked, public schools are not allowed to overspend. And I think it's prudent that you're budgeting conservatively. So I commend you for using the 50% number and not something much higher. The other thing I would just say, and I'm glad you mentioned it, if we do have unencumbered dollars, I think you said, that those unencumbered dollars go to the next year for balancing the next year's budget. That money does not disappear.
That's correct.
So it's still being utilized in an efficient manner for the next year. It's not going away. It's still a resource that we have. I just think it's commendable with a 12% increase in our health care to be able to present the type of budget that we're looking at for our citizenry and for the district is commendable, and I thank you and your team. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Linda, I have a question. These assigned fund balances, when we put money in those, that's essentially like a savings account for future expenses that are going to come across.
That's correct.
So like, for me, I'm going to need new tires on my car. So I've been putting money aside for tires because they're expensive these days. So that's essentially what and once we put money in those assigned fund accounts, we can't just pull them out for any old reason. Like we have to put them on there as a.
Correct. There are classifications of fund balance.
And then, I mean, I'm pretty sure our public has been saying that we're sitting on hordes of money, but they're in assigned fund balance and they're there for a reason. And once that money's spent, because we are spending them down with this budget, but once those dollars are completely spent, we would have to raise taxes, wouldn't we?
That would be correct, because that would be your only source of additional income is to raise taxes.
Okay. Just making sure I was clear.
Yes.
And probably in an Act 1 environment, you wouldn't be able to raise it to the point that you would need to. We have assigned funds in areas because previous boards and administrations had the foresight to put money there. They've pre-funded a lot of the PSERS costs that we're still utilizing to this day. Capital reserve, they pre-funded. They even set us up to borrow and do large HVAC projects district-wise without even impacting the general fund budget, because they built the capital budget to a yearly point where, as debt dropped off, new debt would come on and it wouldn't impact it. So the long-range planning is extremely helpful. But so what we've been doing over the past 5 years really is spending it down. Yeah.
So one other question.
Sure.
Of everything on that budget, how much of it does the board really have oversight of, like that we could really manipulate? I mean, honestly, what does it come down to? Because we can't really touch PSERS, we can't touch salaries are contracted, transportation costs are contracted, food costs are contracted. What part of that budget can we really touch? What percentage would you say? 15%, 20%?
Oh, no. I would say less than 2%.
Thank you.
And the reason I say that is simply because when I look at our direct cost, when I mean direct cost, it's student instruction. When I look at support services for students, such as the social services, psych services, nursing services, all of those expenditures as a percent of the $73 million budget is 62.5% of the budget alone. Support services in itself separate, outside of their debt, is 10.5%. So automatically our debt needs to be 10.5% every year to address our debt. So other than the support services, less than 2% is student activity and building improvements, but the other support services is 24%, and our state funds only 29% of what our total instructional cost is. So that is a third of what our total instructional percentage is. So it's less than 2% is really, if anything, outside of the contracts, is in supplies. And while we try to, overall as a district, and each administrator budgets their supplies and so forth, you budget your knowns and your contracts are in place. And there are some that are 2-3 year software expenses, laptop expenses. Just there's certain contracts in place that and you start with the contracts first before you look at any additions. There is no additions to this budget. It is a status quo. No new positions. In fact, we're transition of entity with ACTI. That's 11 positions coming out of the budget, and so it's really. The salaries are less than what they were in the current budget cycle simply because of that. But no, less than 2%.
And one last thing. So I don't want to jump ahead to the other meeting, but one of the items that's on the other, for the next meeting, I think it's 3.3, is the aggregate financial forecast report. Is that the report that we kind of asked you to present to us every once in a while that says,
Yes.
hey, this is our snapshot of where we are in whatever point in time?
Yes.
And if we're looking at that right now, as of March 31st, we are behind $2.3 million.
That's correct. There were
And
three
where's that money going to come from?
fund balance.
Okay. So we're behind $2.3 million. We've under.
And again, that's at
Right, that's
point
just a
in
point in
March.
time, I get it.
Point
But
in March, yes.
we're behind 2.3 million.
And there were 3 pay cycles in the month of March, so
Right.
that's why you'll see that.
Okay.
I just had a question. So we were talking about tax revenue, and you had brought up the Hers Ridge housing project that is roughly 22 homes complete, or that you have funds or information for. And that equated to, it's not up there, 101,000 or something like that for Hers Ridge. So,
Yes.
yeah, so it used to be, and I don't know if it still is, but it used to be the average household, they figured 2.5 kids a household, and it's probably lower now. But let's say it's 1.5 kids per household. And it cost us $17,000, $18,000 a kid to educate here? Is that what it is?
It's a little less than that. Our students are less than that.
Yeah.
Charter students are more than that.
Okay, so
16.
So 16. So let's go 15. So 15,000 times 1.5 times 22 houses is probably around 650,000, roughly 600,000. But we're only getting 100,000. So when people say, "Oh, you got all this tax money," we don't have all that tax money coming in because it's only 1/6 of what we actually spend. So I just want people to think that that's. Don't get me wrong, Amberbrook helps, but you don't always have an Amberbrook. 9% of the time, it's a housing development to have kids coming into the district. But I just want to equate that it was that 101 just isn't. We just got 101. It's going to cost us roughly $600,000 to take care of that 101,000.
Are there any additional questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn this portion, the budget hearing?
A motion. Second.
We stand adjourned. Folks, we're going to move right into our regular monthly meeting, with the exception of the Pledge of Allegiance, which we've already done. Purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of the Gettysburg Area School District. Board of Director meetings and committee meetings are open to the public, but they're not public meetings. Public comment is welcome, and all issues will be referred to the appropriate board, committee, or administrator. Comments will be summarized in the official board minutes, which will be made available by contacting the business office. If we take a moment to, I think everyone's already silenced their cell phones. Roll call, again, all members are present except for Mr. Dickerson, who's been excused. Board can look to see on any type of notices and communications prior to the meeting, and that would lead us to Dr. Moyer and citizens' participation portion of this meeting.
Thank you again, President Hassinger, and I thank Leslie and Alex for their patience. So next, we would have Leslie Horniman. Leslie, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes.
Wow.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I want to thank you guys for everything you guys do.
Excuse me, Leslie, would you move just a little closer to the microphone? Thanks.
I want to thank you guys for everything you do for our children in the school district. I'm not a frequent flyer, so please bear with me. I'm not used to talking in front of a bunch of people. I just had a couple of things I wanted to talk to you guys about, kind of piggybacking on the last meeting you guys had that had to do with ESS. So, as a parent of a child that battles with mental health issues, I would like to thank you for doing the research on the Hope Squad. I just would like to clarify a few things from the last board meeting. The dismantling of ESS was done with a Dear John letter to, I believe, about 25 students and families. ESS, too many students, was a lifeline. It was a safe place for kids to go and have group counseling with their peer groups, some one-on-one counseling. Also, with the dismantling of this program, 2 ladies, albeit not district employees, but nonetheless, 2 ladies lost their jobs. I don't stand before you pretending that I have all the answers, but I do stand before you and challenge you. Don't leave these 25 kids that have been a part of ESS just hanging out there with no hope. While I also appreciate all the research that was done in implementing a new program, the Hope Squad, I have high hopes for it. I would love to see something implemented utilizing time after school. The kids do need to be in class learning. I also have a deep appreciation for Miss Megan and Miss Tammy from ESS for all they have done while they were at Gettysburg High School. I also have a deep respect and appreciation for Sergeant Major Klein for being my daughter's rock, for Miss Withers, Mr. Lininger, for their tough love and pushing my daughter to keep pushing through her academics. My bottom line is this: Kalina Hart, Jaden Milter, Riley Horn, they all died by suicide. Mental health is a pandemic. We can't ignore it. Mental health is not something that's not to be talked about or something embarrassing. A line item in the budget should not be missed. Don't let these kids down. Start planning now for when this grant for the Hope Squad from WellSpan runs out. Don't let there be another gap in between the programs, please. Because right now these kids are out there and they were just told it's canceled. So a lot of them are just thinking mental health doesn't mean anything. Their thoughts, their voice doesn't matter. Thank you.
Ma'am, you did very well there. And I will speak on behalf of the board.
sorry.
I'll speak on behalf of the board, probably one of the longest sitting members. The board has always taken mental health and has put steps in place consistently each year with recommendations from the administration to counteract that. Losing one child is losing one too many. So, and we do take that seriously. I want you to leave with that thought instead of waiting to hear from somebody.
I will. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Leslie, thank you and well done. Our final contributor tonight is Mr. Alex Hewitt.
Good evening, Board. I wanted to reiterate from the last meeting I was here speaking about the schedule change at the high school and how it's going to affect the career and technology programs. I know some of you are aware of the email. I do look forward to continued communication with that. And Dr. Perrin, I'd like to have your input on this as well. And if I need to CC some emails to you, I just feel strongly that you should be involved in this. Just throwing that out there. Secondly, with the suicide program that was brought up last meeting, I do believe that we do need to have our kids aware if a peer is having problems and direct them to the correct source, but I don't think, in my opinion, that have them to be the counselors, just in my opinion, is the appropriate way. They need to focus on their own health and their what they're going through. Just in my 2 cents worth, be a friend, and if they see that they need help, direct them to the correct source. I just wanted to throw that out there in my 2 cents worth. Now, to the main point, since Ms. Hodges is here, and last meeting I advised her to step down. She wasn't here, though I do know she did get the message because her husband, and unlike what we've talked about previously about if there was an email who it was sent by, I have a direct message here from Ms. Hodges' husband, and here I quote, "You have no idea what you're talking about. You are a shameful person. Amy Beth is a partner in our business, and Judge George was wrong in the decision. Our lawyer clearly pointed that out in court. Shame on you." Okay, actions speak louder than words. So let me throw a few things. If the lawyer clearly pointed out, where was the petition with the court to have it reheard if the judge got it wrong? Second point, I got most of my information from the Gettysburg Times. If the Times got it wrong, where is a statement saying a retraction in that story? And then thirdly, the write-in campaign, you left it open clearly. Now you are doing a write-in campaign. What that looks like is just a career politician that doesn't want to relinquish power. I wouldn't want that as a leader of any student here. And I'm going to ask you again, step down with dignity, because what it looks like is a political hit job trying to siphon votes off from Sigmund, Moyer, and Dickerson. Just my 2 cents worth. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Alex, and that concludes our public comment. President Hassinger.
Before you roll on, I just wanted to clarify from Alex's statement, just in case the paper didn't cover it at the last meeting. With the Hope Squad, the kids definitely wouldn't be counselors.
Okay.
They would just be friends.
Okay, I just...
Yeah. I just didn't want the wrong information to go out.
No, I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
That brings us to routine approvals. This evening, I've been asked by a board member to remove or separate 5.2, so that will be separated. The first motion that I'll ask for is 5.1, 5.3, 5.4, and 5.5.
Second.
Yeah. Question on the motion on the floor.
Dr. Perrin, with the flexible instructional day application 5.4, how many days are we applying for? Do we have a specific amount?
You get approved for weather specifically, it's 5 per year. We apply for a 3-year approval.
Okay.
But where we've, once FIDs were put in place, then along came the emergency instructional template with COVID. We also get that approved. So basically, we can go remote at this point for anything from weather to a emergency to anything that would come up. So this just makes sure that we're covered instructional day wise if we would ever need to go remote for those reasons.
Thanks for clarifying.
Sure.
Are there additional questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, roll call. Tim?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Amy Beth?
Yes.
Timon?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That brings us to 5.2. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Davis.
Mr. President, I abstain from 5.2. My wife is in receipt of some funds from the school district from a business that she owns.
Belinda, I assume you'll get the proper paperwork. So you will not be voting on 5.2. Let me cross you off because I'm sure to call you here in a second. There's a question. Any question on a motion on the floor? Hearing no question, roll call. Al?
Yes.
Timon?
Yes.
Amy Beth?
No.
Michelle?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Items for board action, 6.1, elect a board treasurer. Is there a nomination on the floor?
I'd like to nominate Tim Sigmund, please.
Second.
Are there any additional nominations on the floor? Tim, I'm assuming you will accept the nomination? I didn't want to go
Yes.
through a question and roll call if you weren't. Is there a question on the motion or the nomination? No question, roll call. Tim?
Yeah.
Ryan?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Amy Beth?
No.
Timon? Al?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That brings us to our informational items. The first one, 7.1, the 5-year plan, district warehouse roof replacement project. I'm going to go through these with the board. If you have any questions, please let me know. First one, any questions on 7.1? Hearing none.
I'm sorry, Kenny. Dr. Perrin, where exactly is this warehouse located? It's the one that's here at, got it. I thought so, but I wasn't sure.
One with the old roof.
7.2 is policy 301, administrative code of ethics for retirement. Any questions on 7.2? .3 is policy 301, creating a position. Are there any questions? Next one, 7.4, appointment of superintendent and assistant superintendent. Again, these are informational items, will be board action items at the next meeting. Or there's a question on 7.4? 7.5, conflict of interest. We're basically retiring that particular policy. I know Mike's not here. I'm believing that's probably been incorporated into new language.
Yeah, I can basically speak. Most of these are, we're going through a process of reducing the number of policies. Instead of having a policy across several different types of employee groups, we're creating one policy for all employees for that specific topic. So over the next year, you'll see a lot of policies coming forward that do that very thing. So some policies will be retirements of policies we don't need anymore, and some will be new. And before they get to the board table, they will have already gone through PSBA review and a review by Stock and Leader along with our administrative team before it goes to committee. So that's where we are.
This next one is 7.6, employment of district staff. Next one is 7.7, conflict of interest, and I'm assuming by looking at that, well, actually, I do know, that's the retirement and the rewrite of the new policy consolidating that Dr. Perrin just spoke about. Is there any questions on that?
No questions, Mr. President, but just a quick comment and commendation to Mr. Mike Dickerson leading us through this along with the administrative team, not only condensing our policies, but also bringing policies that have been somewhat out of date up to date in a more contemporary status, which puts the district in a better standing. So I want to thank Mike Dickerson and Dr. Perrin and team for your involvement in that.
Board committee reports.
The Budget and Finance Committee will not be meeting this Thursday. There's nothing to discuss from finance or the administration, so it'll be next month's meeting.
Are there any other members with board committee reports?
I'll just say for
Program reports.
For my program report, I'll say that generally for committee reports, they kind of end in May, and then we put together meetings over the summer as needed. So whether it be policy or finance facilities, we'll advertise and get those meetings out as needed across the summer. A couple of other types of announcements. Being that this is the final board meeting before commencement, just wanted to say best wishes to the high school team, to our 2023 graduates and their families. I hope it's fantastic. I hope it's sunny, and I hope it's cloudless. Hopefully I didn't jinx it. Earlier this week, or earlier today and Friday, I had the opportunity to start signing diplomas for this year's graduates, and it's a simple task, but it's one of my favorite things to do every year because you kind of look at each name as you're signing it and you realize the amount of effort that brought them to that point. So we wish them the best for commencement. 9 instructional days remain this year, and on June 6th we will have an executive session after the board meeting on June 6th. It's required for Act 44 on safety, so we will have that. June 5th, yeah. June 5, I was pushing an extra day. So that'll be after the June 5th meeting. Thanks for the correction. And then based on some of the budget comments, we'll bring a side by side. We'll bring the zero that we've been carrying up through this point, along with any changes that come up between now and June 5th in the final budget. Again, there are no increases in what you're seeing. So that's no increase to professional staff, no increase to classified staff, no additional safety staff. So if there are things the board wants us to consider building into that budget, please let us know prior to then. That's it.
I would just piggyback you, Jason. For the people in the audience, I get an opportunity, and it's a privilege at the beginning of each year to represent the board sitting here at the middle school for the back to school for the teachers and the staff and administration. And I get a chance just to, give them a little roadmap on where the board's at and what our beliefs are. And I'm confident I speak for each board member. I'm going to take a rare opportunity real quickly just to thank the entire staff, teachers, administration for yet another successful school year, even though we still have 9 days. I talked about the opportunities and challenges at the beginning of the year, and it's crystal clear to me, representing this board, speaking for this board, the teachers, staff, and administration met every one of those challenges, and they should be commended. It's a difficult position. It's thankless at times, but on behalf of the board, I want to thank you for a fantastic year. Having said that, our next board meeting will be June 5th at 7 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We stand adjourned.